Okay, in this chapter, I want to take a deeper look at the second of our three most common work areas, and that's the channel settings editor. And to do that, I want to open one of the included Alan Morgan projects. And that can be a little baffling for some people because they're a little bit difficult to find. If you look through the various templates here at the Steinberg Hub, uh, which is where you would think they would appear, you can find all of the original Steinberg stuff, but none of the Alan Morgan stuff shows up in here. At least it doesn't as of right now. It may at some point in the future. And the way to get to them is actually to cancel out of the hub, open the media menu, and select Loop Browser, which is a specialized variant of Media Bay, and then set this filter to projects. And that's going to call up all of the projects in Media Bay, which include the you can see here the Steinberg templates for pop production and things like that. But this is where you get to the Alan Morgan stuff as well. And I'm going to use this one called LA Red just because I've worked with that before. I know it's got the sort of content that we need for this demonstration. So I'm going to double click that. And the first thing it's going to do is tell me that we can't use this directory. And that what it's saying is it's not going to let us modify what's in Media Bay. So we have to pick out a new place for our project to live. And let's just come out here to the desktop. We'll create a new folder and we'll call it My LA Red. Okay. All right, and it'll take just a minute here to load everything up. Okay, so here's what the complete project looks like. We have each component part of the song is nicely sliced and diced in the beginning there, and then they've strung them together into one possible arrangement. Okay, you can do a lot of different stuff with this. Obviously, you can remix what's here. You can add your own tracks to it. You can delete some out and maybe just keep the drum part or whatever. Obviously, you could throw an arranger track in here, and it's already sectioned off for you to create the blocks in a couple of seconds, and then you could work with an entirely unique arrangement and so forth. But another aspect is the folder track at the bottom. They've included all of the DIs, all the direct input channels, so that you can get to the actual raw signal from the original recording with no processing and experiment with that as well. Let me show you what I mean here. Okay, if we open the channel settings editor for that, you can see there's no inserts, there's no strip or EQ settings whatsoever. By comparison, mute that again. If you come up to, say, the rhythm guitar and open the channel settings editor for that, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and it's an interesting before and after opportunity to compare. So let me put the main project window away just to keep this cleaned up a little bit. Okay, the channel settings editor is a very powerful tool for two reasons. First is that the channel settings editor for every track type looks essentially the same, so you only have to learn one set of tools. And the second is this is one of the few places in Cubase where you can access elements of the project window and the mix console simultaneously. I'll show you what I mean. If we jump into our track selection here, I can navigate in one click to any of the tracks within our project. At the moment, we're on an audio track for that rhythm guitar, but if we come up to the piano track, you can tell by the icon right there that that's a VST instrument, and you can see that the input changed from a bus to a MIDI channel. But the basic DNA of the channel strip editor is the same. Everything here looks almost identical between, say, an instrument track and an audio track. Now, the one exception to that is going to be your control tracks. Like if we pop into a VCA, there's nothing here because there is absolutely no content in a VCA track. It's just a control track. So you have the position of the fader and the automation controls over here, and that's about it. But with that notable exception, once you get to learn your way around the channel settings editor, you're good to go on all of these various track types. And the other aspect here, if we look at the channel strip, and we can see an overview here, the position, you can change the layout by dragging stuff around. You can move it around here as well. But the channel strip controls are actually part of the mix console. When we come back over here to things like our routing, this is part of the project window normally, and you would open the mixer. Let me show you the mix console here with the strip expanded. This is where the the saturation, the compressor, envelope shaper, and stuff live. And by using the channel settings editor, you save yourself having to bounce back and forth between those two. So those two reasons right there make this just a very, very powerful editing tool. So we have a total of 10 different tabs here. We've already seen the ability to drop in our insert effects and come right over to our channel strip. And you can even make EQ changes down in this little previewer. That's an echo of what we've got going on here. If we tuck that down and look back over here, it's going to show the same thing. There we go. Okay. So that's fully interactive. With the channel strip in particular here, we've got the ability with these equalization tools at the bottom. And I guess we should point out, as I'm moving the view here between channel and EQ, notice the equalizer controls at the bottom are static. They don't move around. So even though I've got the channel strip shown here, I can still access my equalizer down there. But let's go to the equalizer view for just a moment and point out a couple of things. One is, as you move these nodes, now you can click and drag, obviously, and you can hold down the shift key to make the Q value change while you're with your mouse. And Cubase now gives you the musical value for the associated position as well. So in this particular case, it's telling me that node is at the musical equivalent of B in the third octave. In the bottom here, you can change each one of these EQ types to different settings, shelf EQs, parametrics, and so on. So a lot of sort of hidden flexibility in there, but it's not immediately obvious that there's all of that capability. Something else you can do that's just bypassing the controls is to hide them entirely, bring them up in a digital format if you're more comfortable with seeing the numeric value, or the more traditional analog controls there as well. And the last thing to note about all of these different areas is the preset management tool in the upper right-hand corner. And especially with things like the channel strip and EQ, and especially if you're just starting out, you can apply a preset from the factory library here. So you go to your search window and type in what you're after, and let's just say jazz guitar. And there is, in fact, an EQ preset for that. That's what it looks like. That may not be perfect for your particular track, but it's probably closer than starting with a flat line. Same for the channel strip. If you're working with a new type of material, you can load an entire strip preset for all of these different configurations. So if it's, in this case, a guitar, you want to see what the attack pop strip preset looks like, you can call that up, and it's going to give you a suggestion for saturation, compression, etc. So you can take a completely empty channel and very quickly populate it with at least a starting point for all of those different variables. Then you have probably the granddaddy of them all up here is you can load an entire track preset. And this is the same basic concept, but it's going to apply it to every component. So instead of just the EQ or just the strip, if we put in this Fat Power Chords track preset, it's going to go through and adjust the EQ, the channel strip, the inserts, the whole bit. And in that same breath, let's say you've tweaked it all around and you've got it set up just the way you want. You can also save any of these. If you have an EQ that you particularly like, you can go in and you can save that and name it whatever you want and so forth. And then that's gonna be available to you in the future. So on the right-hand side here, we have the sends and Q sends, which are headphone mixes. And in this rig, we don't have anything configured for that at the moment. But one thing I do want to point out, it's with the send effects, if you, at the moment, we don't have anything configured. In previous versions, you had to leave this, go back into VST connections and create a send bus there before you could do anything with it. You can actually right-click here now and just add an effects send to the first slot. It's going to call up this add track dialog, and we can name this whatever we want. And we can create the track in or outside of a folder and tell it which we would like. And of course, we've got a search engine here too. If we type in that, let's pick, I don't know, RoomWorks SE, because it's easy on the processor. And not only does it drop it right into slot one, it calls up the it calls up the user interface that you can start making adjustments right away. Okay, so before we wrap up this chapter and leave track handling behind, there's one more aspect to the way Cubase handles track arming in particular that I want to show you. Essentially, Cubase's default assumption is that you're a single artist working by yourself. And for that reason, anytime you select a track, you'll notice that the red record arm comes on automatically. And I totally get why you might configure the software that way, because if people want to sit down and record, they have to remember to turn that button on. However, it introduces a problem if you're recording for someone else. So I've added an audio track to demonstrate this. It's track 12, the big blue one there, called Darn It. And I'm going to begin recording audio on that. And then I'm going to select a couple of the other tracks in the project. Okay, so you can see the audio coming into track 12 just fine. Just pretend this is a vocalist singing the next great American pop song. You come down here and select track 16 because you want to turn down the guitars a little bit, and look what happens. Not only did you stop recording up there on track 12, now you're recording over your rhythm guitars. And the same thing is going to happen if we jump up here and I want to adjust the bass. Now I'm recording on track 15, and I come back to 12. Now I'm recording on 12 again. Okay, so you can see that's a real mess. And it's certainly not uncommon for somebody sitting in a control room to be making adjustments to other tracks while something's being recorded. The way you fix this is you come into the preferences and move down to, of all things, the project and mix console area. And then this button to enable record on selected audio track, disable that. That's where you turn that functionality on and off. And with that disabled, let's go back and repeat our experiment here. Should be able to get rid of all of those. That was just a Command Z to undo. All right, now we're going to try that same experiment again, start recording up here on track 12, and we'll see what happens as I move around throughout the project. And signal's coming in just fine. And look at this, I can come down here and I can adjust that track, and I can bounce over here and adjust this. And nothing's getting turned on or off. The artist can continue to, I don't know, where'd it go? There we go. Bass up and down. Make all my other adjustments, and nothing's going to affect the arm status of 12, nor is it going to turn on anything else. So with that in mind, we'll move into the VST instruments.